Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996. Welcome back, everyone, to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Before we hear from our speaker, our tradition is to go around and introduce ourselves first. My name is Tom.
I'm Mark.
Anthony.
My name is John.
Mitch.
My name is Michael.
I'm Kaleo.
My name is Robert.
John.
Will.
I'm David.
I'm Blake.
Andrea.
McCoy.
My name is Paul.
Peter. My name is Jerry. My name is Jerry.
My name is Douglas.
I'm Jack.
Leor.
I'm Amos.
My name is David.
Kendall.
My name is David.
Jeff.
My name is Tage. My name is Casey.
I'm Brian. My name is Hal.
My name is Wayne. My name is Joe.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Did we miss anyone? Okay. Our speaker today is Kevin Griffin. Kevin is the author of One Breath at a Time, Buddhism and the 12 Steps, and A Burning Desire, Dharma, God, and the Path of Recovery. A longtime Buddhist practitioner and 12-step participant, he is leader in the Mindful Recovery Movement and one of the founders of the Buddhist Recovery Network. He also has out a new CD called Laughing Buddha, an eclectic mix of Buddhist-themed rock music.
Well done. I'm trying to figure out one sentence to describe it. It's a lot of rhythmic stuff, but not, when people talk about Buddhism and music, they usually think it's going to be either chanting or like really mellow kumbaya stuff. No, I'm not into that. I'm a rock guitarist, but if you're interested, it's pretty fun. And there are some CDs out there as well as some books. So if people are interested, please avail yourselves. I don't know, avail yourselves with money. So I don't want to make it sound. I believe in generosity, but it goes both ways. So. It's great to be here. I always enjoy coming to this group. And this space is a space that I really like too. And then I live in Berkeley, and the only time you can get to San Francisco in 20 minutes is on Sunday morning. So that's kind of like a mystical experience in itself, it's just coming. And this is the first time I got to come across the New Bay Bridge during the daytime. It's a beautiful thing. Nice to see you. So I've been kind of finding topics for teaching is always the challenge for me when I teach. I do a lot of teaching, and a lot of times it's in the recovery themes, so that's kind of easy. But in more general Buddhist themes, it's kind of like, well, let me see if I can find a list, because there's a lot of lists in Buddhism, and so there's a sitting group in Berkeley that I'm part of now. Wes Nisker and I share it, and I decided at the beginning of the year to work with one set of Buddhist teachings called the numerical discourses, where it's all lists, and it starts with lists of 1, and then lists of 2, and lists of 3. So each month I take the number of that month as the theme. So this month was the 10th month, and so I'm working with something called the Paramitas, the 10 perfections, which is really a beautiful Buddhist teaching. It's one I've not fulfilled. So I actually thought about writing my own book called The 10 Imperfections, that I'm much better at the imperfections. So things like impatience, irritability, restlessness, things like that. But I've been too lazy to write the book, so that's one of the other imperfections. Nonetheless, a wonderful book on the 10 Perfections is by Sylvia Boorstein, who was a Spirit Rock teacher. And Sylvia is, she sort of became known for writing these sort of Buddhist light books, like Don't Just Do Something, Sit There. And what's the other one? Funny You Don't Look Buddhist. So, she's sort of this grandmotherly figure, but she actually has a really penetrating intelligence, and she has a particularly organized kind of mind, very systematic. Very unlike me. I don't have an organized mind at all. My mind is more like a dirty sandbox with a little bunch of broken toys, and maybe the cat pooped over in the corner. It all comes together at some point, but it's kind of messy to look at. So it's good to rely on somebody like her to help me through my talk. So this book is called Pay Attention for Goodness Sake. And what I love in this book is it covers these 10 paramitas, but she has this chart where she has this whole system of looking at the paramitas. And in the chart, the top of the table, I guess you would call it, it shows the practice of, and that's the paramita itself, develops the habit of, by, and is supported by, and manifests as. So it's really a beautiful kind of way of going through these. So I'm just going to kind of take us through the paramitas. So just to put them in a little bit of context, the paramitas are these 10 qualities that it's said that the Buddha perfected. So that's why they're called. The paramita is translated as perfection. So I use the two terms synonymously. So, and just a little bit of Buddhist context for this. This is a Theravadan version of these teachings. Theravadan Buddhism is Southern Asian Buddhism. In the Mahayana, which is Northern Asian Buddhism, there are 6 paramitas. So somewhere they got lost they lost 4 somewhere along the way. So as a Theravadan, that's my team. So, we're about, go Theravadans. Okay, that's just really silly. We went to a baseball game last night. My throat is still sore. So, I was thinking about wearing my A's gear today, but no. So the first paramita, generosity, the practice of generosity. Now, generosity is the first thing that the Buddha taught to lay people, and it's the logical extension of his teaching on suffering, which is that what causes suffering is clinging, trying to hold on to things. So the logical antidote to that is to let it go, to give it away. So the most sort of grounded or sort of physical way of doing that is to be generous. And of course you can be generous with things, but you can be generous with time and with love, and in many ways we can be generous. But that's how he kind of helped lay people who weren't really, jumping in to do his practice. They weren't becoming monks. It was his way of introducing them sort of gently into the teachings and for them to help them to see the insights that he was teaching about. So the practice of generosity develops the habit of sharing by experiencing the joy of not feeling needy and the ease of a peaceful mind, the possibility of the ending of suffering, which is the third noble truth. So the ease of a peaceful mind and the joy of not feeling needy. So it's kind of a sweet thing, and we can kind of see how that is right. When you give something away, there is a feeling like, oh, it's not about me getting stuff. And is supported by realizing that life is inevitably challenging, which is the first noble truth, and discovering the relief that comes with the absence of self-centered preoccupation. And it manifests, generosity manifests as contentment. So that's the starting point. The second paramita, morality. The practice of morality develops the habit of calming by discovering the joy of practicing wise action, wise speech, and wise livelihood, the relational aspect of the Eightfold Path, and is supported by experiencing the pain of contrition and remorse and the pleasure of making amends, the bliss of blamelessness. So, as a recovering addict and alcoholic, this one certainly resonates for me. Morality is supported by experiencing the pain of contrition and remorse and the pleasure of making amends. And so it's really seeing karma, see cause and effect, see that what I do has resonance in the world, it has effects, and there's a simple law to that if I do harm, then I'm going to feel pain around that in one way or another, unless I'm a sociopath, basically. And then I just don't feel anything, I guess. And of course, this is one of the things that the 12 Steps teaches us, to go through this kind of process of self-examination and then making amends and seeing how freeing that is. So morality manifests as virtue. Some of this language, it's a little, I guess, kind of religious in a way, but if we can get past maybe even the term morality in our culture has become kind of, in a way it's gotten hijacked by the right wing, hasn't it? It's like moral, that's like the moral majority, these kind of terms. But it's really, to me, just about doing the right thing. And morality, to me, is also just founded in love, in caring for people. So the third paramita, the practice of renunciation, another popular term, develops the habit of restraining by realizing that insatiable wanting is suffering. That's the second noble truth. It's such a powerful teaching. So the way this works, the way our practice really works, I think a core aspect of our practice is that we sit and we do nothing. You're meditating, but really you're doing nothing. Internally, of course, there's stuff going on. And internally, if you watch the experience and you notice the mind go somewhere, and when the mind goes somewhere, it's either out grasping at something or complaining about something, pushing it away or moving towards it. And in the moment of seeing that, we see the suffering. If you pay attention to how that feels, not so much like, what am I thinking about? And that can be useful too. But to kind of just check in, how does that feel in my body? And usually when I notice that my mind is wandering, especially if it's caught up in something kind of agitating, I can feel my body usually is tensed, and my jaw might get tight, or my breath will get shallow, and I'll notice that, and I'll relax. And in that moment I realize, that's exactly what the Buddha's talking about, that grasping, that just wanting stuff all the time is painful. And it's painful beyond just that present moment experience, but that's a clear seeing into that experience. So renunciation, which has this kind of implication of being deprived of something, or being really pure, and like, I'm going to give up TV, and I'm not going to have a car, and I'm going to, only wear sackcloth. It doesn't have a big, it's not great for marketing in our culture. Our culture is, built on the opposite of renunciation, just, acquisition. But the essence of it isn't about giving up things. It's about giving up that ceaseless, insatiable wanting. If we can do that, it doesn't matter how many things we have. That's not the problem. The things aren't the problem. It's our relationship to the things. It's fine to have things, understanding that things come and go. Things break, things, get old. So renunciation manifests as temperance. A little bit 1920s for me. I didn't get to this. Supported by. Renunciation is supported by discovering that everything passes, including uncomfortable desires, which is insight into impermanence. Well, I guess I was already saying that. Right, I'm going to take a little water here. And if at any point someone wants to interrupt and say something, you feel free. I think I might be damaging the floor there. Okay, so we'll try to get through this. So the fourth paramita is wisdom. The practice of wisdom develops the habit of discerning by understanding that although our minds are continually and inevitably challenged by desires, peace is possible. Wisdom is supported by practicing wise effort, wise concentration, and wise mindfulness, which are the mind training aspects of the Eightfold Path. So wisdom is supported by practicing meditation and manifests as clarity. Well, that all seems pretty self-evident, and I think that's one of the things that we all come here for, is to cultivate these qualities. Understand, it's wisdom. The practice of wisdom develops the habit of discerning by understanding that although our minds are continually and inevitably challenged by desires, peace is possible. I guess, my kind of approach to this is very similar, but maybe just a slightly different feeling, or to bring something out of this, that it's okay that our minds are continually and inevitably challenged by desires. That, to me, is part of the wisdom, is knowing that this is just the way it is. When I sit down to meditate and things don't go the way I would like, that's not a result of some failing on my part, but rather that this is the nature of being a human with a mind and a body, that I'm continually, caught up in thoughts of wanting to have and wanting to not have. That to me is kind of where the peace comes from, because the wanting isn't as much, for me, especially in meditation, the wanting isn't as much of a problem as the not wanting to have the wanting. It's like you sit there, stuff is coming, and then you go, oh, I'm supposed to be meditating. Oh, I really want to relax. Oh, why is this happening? I remember that time I was meditating and it was so peaceful. How did I get that? What did I do? Let me try counting my breaths. No, I don't like that. It's like, no, if I just sit there and go, oh, yeah, here it is. Wow, okay. Hi. Then, after a little while, there's this natural calming that comes because I'm not engaging. I'm not struggling with things as they are. They're just as they are. And when you sit still with things as they are, eventually the peace just arises naturally. Okay, the next paramita, the practice of energy, develops the habit of striving by realizing that there is no time other than now, and is supported by focusing on the formidable task of ending suffering and remembering the possibility of peace. Energy manifests as indefatigability. Well, this is, I think, very interesting because we think of meditation, and the teaching is that we shouldn't be striving, because isn't that suffering? And this is, that kind of subtlety that a Buddhist mindfulness practice demands of us, which is to be able to separate, to be aware of and distinguish between an effort which is grasping and wanting from an effort that is just engaged. and has it with a strong motivation and intention. So the way that we are able to discern the difference between these two is by being mindful of how they feel. I actually don't think we emphasize how we feel enough in teaching meditation. Because to me, that's at the heart of this practice. There's always thoughts and stuff, and people kind of get into, I'm not thinking, come back to my breath, thinking, come back to my breath. But a lot of the time, the real action is going on in the emotional body, and in the emotions in the body. And you can feel those. I don't exactly know what emotions are. I know there's definitions, but the more I meditate, the less I feel like I know what they really are in terms of, defining them scientifically, because I feel emotions a lot around here in my body, but also a little bit out here, sort of. And there's nothing out here as far as I can see. It's just air. But so trying to exactly define that is difficult. But I do know that when my eyes are closed and I'm paying attention, I can feel the difference between I am striving in this, really with clear intention, and I really want to get it. And you can feel it in your gut. So paying attention to that, because if you just sit there and go, I'm putting in my time in the cushion, whatever. It's beneficial to some extent, but it doesn't have the same power as when you're really engaged. Okay, I'm going to try to really watch my breath. I'm going to watch when my mind wanders. I'm just going to do that. How do I do that, without getting agitated? And that's, Suzuki Roshi, who wrote Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, talks about this. This is the secret of practice. And it's not the secret because nobody will tell you. It's a secret because you can only figure it out for yourself through your own direct experience. No one can tell you how to distinguish this right effort. It's just something we have to explore for ourselves. Okay, the next paramita, patience, my favorite. The practice of patience develops the habit of abiding by understanding this will change and it cannot be other yet. This is insight into impermanence and into karma. It cannot be other yet. I tried this the other day. Well, I forget. Well, I know I was waiting in line. Oh, right. I remember I was at the CVS in Berkeley, which is kind of like a homeless camp. I just wanted to buy some tissues, and I regretted the whole thing. But I was standing in line and I remember, what was that teaching? Right? It cannot be other yet. I didn't leave. Because that was what I was going to do. I was just going to drop all the stuff on the floor and walked out. So that was something. But I don't know if I was patient. But it's a beautiful teaching. It is such a simple teaching. Things are as they are right this moment. I was late to a teaching a couple years ago. I was going to Portland and my plane was delayed. And I came into this packed hall. I don't know. I wasn't extremely late. It was maybe half an hour late. But, it's pretty unusual for the Dharma teacher to be late. That's one of the things we strive to avoid. I was mentioning that to my daughter this morning on the way over here. It's not good for business. Well, I had been invited by a Zen community, and the Zen teacher was up front. And when I walked in, I walked up to him and said, I'm very sorry for being late. I'd been in touch with them, texting or whatever, and they knew I was running late. And he just looked me in the eye and said, things are as they are. I was like, that was just such a kind thing to say. It's just how it is right now. There's nothing to be, what are you going to do? That's another way of saying this, I guess. What are you going to do? It cannot be other yet. And thank God, it will change. Or thank whatever you want to thank. So patience develops a habit. of abiding. By understanding this will change, it cannot be other yet, and is supported by cultivating tranquility by practicing wise concentration. Breathe, in other words. Just breathe. And manifests as tolerance. Okay. That's 6. Make sure I get through this. So the next one is the practice of truthfulness. Develops the habit of disclosing. By discovering what is true and telling the truth in ways that are helpful. Practicing wise mindfulness and wise speech. Truthfulness is supported by experiencing the discomforting isolation of guile, separation from self and others, and the ease and peace of candor. Truthfulness manifests as intimacy. Well, this is another one that really resonates for people in the 12-step world. Before I got sober, there was so much that I felt I had to conceal from the world, and really from myself. I couldn't admit to that. So I would say that truthfulness starts with self, and then moves out to telling others. Is supported by experiencing the discomforting isolation of guile. I don't really know that word, guile. I didn't realize that was what it meant, but I'm going to trust Sylvia. And the ease of candor. I mean, this is, for me, so powerful. And I found so much freedom when I started to be able to be honest in that way. And really, this is one of the main things that I bring into my teaching as a Dharma teacher, because when I first was teaching meditation, there were times when I would try to be Jack Kornfield when I gave a talk. I'd try to give this really perfect, systematic, and I would have all these notes and maybe things to read from, and maybe I'd write out the whole thing, and first of all, that was really painful because I'm not Jack Kornfield, and I love his teaching, and I can't do it. I can't be someone else. But what would happen is that in the middle of these teachings, I would think of something else, and I would go off and talk about that for a second, and then I'd come back and I'd be like, oh, I can't get back in because that's not where the talk was supposed to go, and that was really painful. And at a certain point, I just realized I should just be myself when I teach. And, and in my writing, I'm very honest about my life. I mean, as a recovering alcoholic, you have to be, especially if you're trying to get recovering alcoholics to buy your book, because if you're not, they'll see right through the BS. But in the Buddhist world, we're a little, I don't think we're quite so comfortable with that, especially, if you come into some sort of serene and, spiritual feeling space, and everybody's quiet and everybody's meditating, and you think, oh, these people are all just so good, and they're such good meditators. They're so holy, and me, boy, if they knew. Okay, well, I better not say anything. I'll just act like that. And then, you go home and you feel what does she say? The discomforting isolation of guile. Separation from self and others. This is one of the things that I kind of speak against in the Buddhist world, is let's be real with each other. We don't come in and sit here silently meditating because our lives are so perfect and we're so happy. We come here because we've experienced the truth of suffering, and we want to heal that. We want to move through that. We want to find ways to find happiness and freedom. But we all struggle, and that's life. And besides, when the Dharma teacher sits up there and they are perfect, which a lot of times it seems like they are, I feel worse a lot of times, frankly. It's like, oh, it's so inspiring, but I could never be that good, And so, I take a different strategy, which is just, reveal my warts and so truthfulness. You like the way I ended that sentence right in the middle of the and period? The practice of determination develops the habit of persevering by seeing clearly into the cause of suffering so that the resolve to change habits of mind becomes spontaneous. Supported by validating through direct experience the possibility of a peaceful mind. And consolidating through repeated experience the spiritual faculty of faith. Determination manifests as tenacity. Well, I think this obviously goes hand in hand with energy and that whole challenge of finding how to balance that. And in the suttas, in the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha talks about this so much, and it can be intimidating. And I've never quite figured out how to, be really determined. Well, in my early practice, I was really determined, and I worked really hard, and I suffered a lot, and it just, it was useful, but at a certain point, I just was like, I give up. And that was kind of when it felt like my practice began, when I gave up. So for me, determination is more about showing up. It's more about consistency. Day by day, year by year. I do meditate every day. Virtually every day. I go and retreat just about every year. The idea of keep coming back that we say in the 12-step world, that concept, just keep showing up in your cushion, keep working at this. I mean, for instance, I can remember it's almost 20 years ago that I really learned about right speech and came to kind of understand what that meant. I said, I really want to develop this quality because I saw in one of my teachers that, wow, he's really careful with his speech, and I want to be like that. And I started to try to work with that. And 20 years later, I feel like I've made a little progress, something like right speech, it's so challenging. And if I set up these goals, this is how I should be, or, I should be enlightened, or, I should be somewhere, it just creates so much suffering. But if I just have this, she talks about the faith, that if I trust that just by showing up, things will get better, then I can do that. I can do that one day at a time. I can show up. I can't always, do it right or the way I think is right. But it's true that over time, vast changes happen. It doesn't happen, overnight the way I think I'm supposed to get enlightened, like in a blinding flash of light. Okay. So the practice of loving kindness develops the habit of well-wishing by celebrating positive qualities in other people and cultivating forgiveness. And is supported by remembering that since suffering is universal, everyone is motivated by the desire to be happy. So this is one of the really, I would say, popular teachings of Buddhism and also really inspiring ones. Loving kindness develops the habit of well-wishing by celebrating positive qualities in other people and cultivating forgiveness. Such a great suggestion, because it's so easy to celebrate the negative qualities in other people and cultivate resentment. And that's and so to just have this as a guideline, and it's just one of those. Do the opposite. Just keep doing the opposite. And is supported by remembering that since suffering is universal, everyone is motivated by the desire to be happy. Such just a great remembrance. Oh, he's really an asshole. And he probably really wants to be happy. So he's probably just doing that either out of his own confusion or because he thinks it's going to make him happy. So maybe I should forgive. I love that teaching, that everybody is motivated by the desire to be happy. And one of the things the Buddha says is that everyone is motivated by the desire to be happy, but tragically, most of the time, they're doing just the opposite from what will bring happiness. And of course, the most obvious way we see that is by people pursuing, acquisition and physical pleasure. The way to happiness is to get things and have, sensual joy, pleasure constantly, which is sort of the definition of addiction. And it's what our culture runs on. It's what our economy runs on. So it's up to us to wake up one person at a time. So finally, the 10th paramita is the practice of equanimity. Develops the habit of accepting by experiencing the happiness of impartiality, by paying attention to the whole truth of every moment. Seeing both sides. It's supported by intuiting and acknowledging that this is a lawful cosmos, just and comforting in its dependability, and by understanding karma, cause and effect, and interdependence. Equanimity manifests as compassion. So equanimity is perhaps the most treasured quality in Buddhism. It shows up as the fourth of the Brahma Viharas, which are the divine abodes, the highest forms of emotion. It shows up as the seventh of the 7 factors of enlightenment. And equanimity is this quality of being present without either grasping or pushing away. It's acceptance of things as they are, which doesn't mean that we don't respond to things skillfully and do something about it. But it's that our heart stays balanced. It's a non-reactivity. The classic way this is cultivated is by observing that every sense experience we have is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. The pleasant experiences, they incline us towards grasping. The unpleasant experiences incline us towards aversion. The neutral experiences incline us towards not knowing, ignorance, unawareness. But if we just notice, if we just stay with the reality of the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral without moving beyond that, then there's no problem. It's called guarding the senses. It's not that we block our senses. It's that everything comes kind of through, rather than, there's a resistance or there's a... It's just, wow, that's unpleasant. Oh, that's pleasant. Oh, that's just how it is. Certainly this is a huge challenge, and it's not something, that we just, that's all I have to do, fine, I'll just do that. But we can get taste of this by just kind of starting to pay attention to this level of experience of the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. For instance, if like a smoke alarm went off right now, if you just went, that's just unpleasant. Okay. The difference between that and, I can't stand that, turn that thing off. We can do both. We can do either, I should say. And if we're conscious, we can make that choice. We can go, that's really unpleasant. Now, let's turn that off, hope that was some interest and some help. Looks like we're just about out of time. My watch is malfunctioning a bit.
We have about 40 minutes left. No, it's it's almost a quarter of.
Okay. So we have
about 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A.
Beautiful. Great. Yes.
Well, I think it's interesting that the last perfection, equanimity, she said, or it is said, manifest as compassion, which relates to the previous perfection, loving kindness, and derives from the recognition of suffering in others. Could you say it a little more?
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say something.
Well, no, maybe there's nothing further to be said.
Oh, that'd be good. When I look at that, that's one that I'm not so clear about why she gets to how she gets to compassion with it. And kind of what comes up for me is when I'm feeling balanced, and I see other people who aren't feeling balanced, I feel compassion for them. So that's probably not what she's talking about, but because really in the teaching on the Brahma Viharas, there's loving kindness, which we offer to all beings. There's compassion, which is compassion for other people's suffering that we're putting out. There's sympathetic joy, which is taking happiness in other people's happiness. But when we get to equanimity, what we say is, even though I have all these wishes for you, for loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy, you are actually the heir of your own karma. My wishes aren't actually going to control that. So it's odd to me that she goes back to compassion, which is more of a wish. And equanimity is kind of saying, my wishes aren't going to be in control. They aren't going to control what happens to you. So I don't understand it.
Well, I do think compassion derives from an open heart.
Yeah.
And I think of the word compassion as being coming together with someone else's situation, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
That's as far as I can go.
I think that's a good place to go. Thank you. Oh, hi.
Just to add that in the state of equanimity, it's a version of open-heartedness, but we are in that state naturally open to the experience of others, and we are wired so that when we are open to the experience of others, we do experience some part of what they are feeling.
Yeah, that's nice. The mirror neurons
Yes.
they talk about, yeah. That's nice. That the equanimity is very open, accepting. So there's going to be that resonance for us, that reflection. It's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, this is about Buddhism and recovery a little bit, but I mean, I do find that in recovery you start, in a way, you connect with your imperfections and your honesty about that. It's not that you stay there, but that's the ground of connection. And the more I've been in recovery, the more it puzzles me that oftentimes doesn't happen when you're not with you, but that doesn't happen more in other venues of spiritual discourse when there's a teacher who does, and I'm puzzled by that. Why is that? Is that the tradition?
You mean that they don't talk about their own imperfection?
Yeah.
My impression is that there's a couple things. First of all, that I think there's an idea of trying to inspire people to something, sort of be exemplary model that will inspire people. And yes, I think if you've practiced in Asia, particularly like the Burmese, they're very, closed in a way, and they're very much, there's even monks, they'll put up a fan if they were going to smile, they'll put up a fan in front of their face so you can't see them smile. There's this sort of idea of this completely unmoving, kind of unemotional being somehow supposed to be a Buddha. I don't buy that by any means. I mean, I don't think the Buddha was unemotional at all. I just think that's one of those things that just evolves over time. So yeah, I think those, to me, those are the two things. It's partly kind of the modeling, some kind of inspirational model, and the other is this sort of traditional version of what a Buddha is supposed to be. But I think it's really hard to be honest about your failings in public. When you've been to, when you've been going to AA meetings for a long time and talking about your stuff, it's not so hard after a while. But when I first went to meetings and actually shared, it was a huge thing, And then after a while, I learned, oh, this is great. I love this feeling. It's such a relief to unburden myself and to not feel shame and to be able to just be open about my failings. And it's you can also be open about your strengths too, and just be. But I don't think that many Buddhist teachers have had that experience of that kind of a venue. So I really see my teacher training started in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm really breaking my anonymity because I don't usually even say AA, and you're going to have that on your thing there, so. But I don't worry about it too much. So, yeah, I just don't think people get trained in that particular teacher training that I got. Yeah.
I like what you had to say about I'll paraphrase it, how I heard it, about feeling in Buddhism. And I think sometimes with feeling there's got to be vulnerability. Yeah. And sometimes we can stand behind the 10 Paramitas or talk about it. Yeah. And something that's helped me, which I try to remember the years from therapy, is feelings are not good or bad, they just are. And to say, my therapist always said, say to somebody, if you're having a problem, I feel, because there's no bad or no good, it's just this is how I feel. Yeah. And so I look at humanness coming, but it's very difficult also sometimes.
Yeah, and yeah, as I say, I mean, it's really important in my practice, and that's right. In terms of how we communicate to people, I mean, I just thought of, recently I got sort of a really negative email. Very occasionally, I get a lot of really nice emails from people saying they appreciate my writing. And someone wrote and said something, they had made all these assumptions, and of course I get angry when that happens, but then I realized, wow, that really hurt my feelings. So I wrote back, I said, I found that really hurtful. And it felt so much better to say that than try to defend myself. It was like, wow, that was a really hurtful thing to say. Why would you say that? Kind of, So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, Jeff.
In a similar vein, and to what John asked, I find a similar disparity, in spiritual circles. People tend to be much more holy or practicing not feeling, maybe, to some extent. And I find your approach refreshing in that you are more, it feels more authentic and honest, and feels like mature spiritual circles and teachers are like that. They're themselves. I mean, Ramdas is constantly getting comments. Wow, it's so wonderful. You're so human. And so refreshing. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think some of the teachers we have the greatest affinity for here have come and sat and revealed their imperfections and talked about what it's really like in the real world. And Sudhana Cullen was who recently passed. She was here, and she started off doing her last talk with an agenda of what she was going to talk about, and then she sort of said, well, what's really happening is I'm dying, so let's talk about that. And it was just so amazing, to hear someone in the midst of their struggle.
Yeah. Sweet.
I think we're out of time, but thank you. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, all of you. And please feel free to invite me back anytime.
Keep coming back. Do we have announcements? Yes, thanks.
I'm going to be co-leading a workshop called Lightening Up About Death in a couple of weeks from now. And something about the talk today reminded me how useful it is to look at difficult topics in community with other people rather than avoiding them forever. And so the workshop will be an opportunity to explore death with some sense of adventure and humor and a lot of compassion. We'll be doing meditation, journaling, dance and movement, as well as laughter yoga, which is laughter-based.
Yeah.
So I have flyers. If you'd like to know more, please see me during the break. Social hour. Jerry?
Hi. I want to make an announcement. Jennifer Beresin, who's been here many times, has put together a program on November 2nd at the Marine Civic Center. And there's flyers out. There's a whole list of people. It's like a great event, and if you're interested, take a flyer.
We also have our Facebook page is now up and running, and you can even post to it and upload photos and things like that. So we encourage you to do that and like it. But without clinging. Like it. Next week, our speaker will be Shepherd Commonars. He has written 2 previous books on recovery and is himself a cancer survivor. He's worked over the past 25 years in counseling consulting, and he's done a lot of really good stuff, which we'll probably read before he starts next week. Our host?
Yes, I'm your host. Let's see, there are 4 items. 1, generosity. I get the privilege of coming around with the Donna bowl, and it's the worst thing that I just don't like doing it. But anyway, you see me walking with the bowl, and I can kind of look in your eyes. Please try to be generous. And I think it comes back, so be really generous today. And let's see, secondly, I'm into cleaning cups. So if you like to have a pot of tea, please just gently put your cup in the soapy water. The 3rd item is I brought mostly unhealthy treats today.
Yeah.
The best thing out there is the Trader Joe's melon, and it isn't even organic, and it's probably not local. It's probably coming from But if you can look beyond that, I think that's the most nutritional thing there. And there's some hummus thing too. And the 4th item is there's a sign-up list as you walk out here to the right. Maybe the new people here today, if you want to get on our mailing list, just sign up. And that's it. Oh, and there's a group of us that meet for lunch right afterwards, about 12:30, right out in front. And it's a good way to get to meet members of the Sangha. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? Okay, let's gather in a circle for our dedication of merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast. like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.